Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Literature Simplified, where I explain English literature in simple English. Today we are going to study the life and works of Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller was born during a difficult period in American history. World War I had just ended in 1918, and by the late 1920s and early 1930s, the United States was facing the Great Depression. This was a severe global economic recession from 1929 to 1939. This economic crisis badly damaged both the American economy and the public's morale. Although the country had enjoyed prosperity earlier, the 1930s saw a sharp decline. Around 600 banks failed, along with nearly 20,000 businesses. Industries such as mining, farming, and textiles suffered a great deal, leading to widespread unemployment. Arthur Miller was born during this period. He was an American playwright, essayist, and author who was born on October 17, 1915, in Manhattan, New York City, to moderately wealthy Jewish parents named Isidore and Augusta Miller. His father was an immigrant from Poland who could not read or write, but he had built a successful coat manufacturing business and had nearly 1,000 employees. This business collapsed after the 1929 Wall Street crash, which was a major stock market collapse in the United States that triggered the Great Depression, which lasted until 1939. This forced the family to move to a smaller house in Brooklyn. This sudden loss of wealth deeply affected Miller and shaped his understanding of insecurity and loss. He once withdrew his entire savings, a whole $12, from the bank to buy a bicycle just before the United States Bank shut down. Unfortunately, the bicycle was stolen within the same week. This experience taught him that no one was safe from the effects of the Depression. Because of financial hardship, Miller could not attend university immediately after finishing high school in 1932. In 1934, after gaining admission into the University of Michigan, he worked a series of small jobs to pay his tuition. These included working as a delivery boy, a dishwasher, waiter, warehouse clerk, singer at a local radio station, laboratory assistant handling mice, truck driver, tanker crewman, seaman, factory worker, and shop fitter's helper. That is someone who builds and installs the interiors of shops. Wow, that's a lot. At the University of Michigan, Miller studied journalism. He worked on a student newspaper and became a reporter and night editor for the Michigan Daily, which helped him to earn money. A night editor is basically a person responsible for getting a morning newspaper to the printing press. He was strongly influenced by his teacher and critic, Kenneth E. Rowe, from the University of Michigan's drama department. After reading Rowe's book called Write That Play, Miller became deeply committed to writing plays. From that point onwards, he wrote continuously and won the Avery Hopwood Award for Best Original Play for 2 consecutive years. That award is a major scholarship program at the University of Michigan, founded by Avery Hopwood, who was an ex-alumnus and a prominent American dramatist. During a vacation, Miller visited Chicago and watched a performance of Clifford Odets's play Awake and Sing. Clifford Odets was an American playwright, screenwriter, and actor. The play's message, that life should have dignity, left a strong and lasting impression on Miller. He then wrote his first play, No Villain, which won the Avery Hopwood Award. The play focuses on a small garment manufacturer and his university educated son, Arnold Simon, who is a character based on Miller himself. In 1937, Miller wrote Honors at Dawn, which also won the Avery Hopwood Award. This play deals with the Depression era and explores the hopes and disappointments of the Zabriskie family. Miller received several awards for his writing, and his strong record helped him to join the Federal Theatre Project. This was a nationwide program created to provide employment to unemployed writers, actors, directors, and designers. Miller earned a weekly salary of $22.77. He reported to the office daily and continued writing plays on his own at night. During this time, he completed Montezuma, a play about the conquest of Mexico. However, the federal theater project was shut down in 1940 because Congress, which is the legislative branch of the United States federal government, feared communist influence. They believed that theater had become a dangerous political tool capable of questioning authority and exposing social injustice. After this, Miller began working at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which is a shipyard and industrial complex in Brooklyn, New York. He also continued writing radio plays, some of which were broadcast on CBS's Columbia Workshop, which was a radio program series. On the 5th of August 1940, Arthur Miller married his college friend Mary Slattery, the daughter of an insurance salesman. They had two children, Jane and Robert. Robert later became a director, writer, and producer and directed the 1996 film version of The Crucible. Because Miller had injured his left kneecap while playing football in high school, he was exempted from military service during World War II. The context is that during World War II, most able bodied men within a certain age range were eligible for compulsory military service in the United States. However, those with physical disabilities or serious injuries were exempted. In 1944, Miller wrote The Man Who Had All the Luck, which was produced in New York. The play won the Theatre Guild's National Award. However, despite this recognition, it closed after only 6 performances. The following years were difficult for Miller. He published his first novel, Focus, but it received very little attention. During this period, he also adapted a play called Three Men on a Horse by dramatists George Abbott and John C. Home for radio. During the war years, Miller wrote All My Sons, which was produced at the Coronet Theatre in 1947. This was a Broadway theatre in New York. The play was an immediate success and ran for 328 performances. Although it was criticized by some for being unpatriotic, All My Sons won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award and 2 Tony Awards in 1947. The Tony Awards are awarded annually for distinguished achievement in American theater. The play deals with the moral responsibility of a factory owner who knowingly sells defective aircraft parts during World War II. In 1948, Miller built a small shed in Roxbury, Connecticut, where he wrote Death of a Salesman, his most famous work. The play won the Tony Award for Best Play, the New York Drama Critics Circle Award, and the Pulitzer Prize. It ran for 742 performances and established Miller as one of America's leading playwrights. In the 1950s, as anti communist fear spread across the United States, Miller responded by writing an adaptation of Henrik Ibsen's An Enemy of the People and The Crucible, which is set during the Salem witch trials of 1692. The Salem witch trials were a series of investigations and prosecutions that took place in 1692 in Salem Village in Massachusetts. Around 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, about 30 were convicted, and 19 were executed by hanging. The trials were driven by fear, religious extremism, and mass hysteria. In The Crucible, Miller compared the witch hunts of Salem to the activities of the House Un American Activities Committee, or the HUAC, a committee formed to investigate alleged communists and their supporters in American society. Although The Crucible was not very successful when it was first produced and ran for only 197 performances, it later became one of Miller's most frequently performed plays. In the early 1950s, Miller joined a group of writers, publishers, and journalists who planned to write articles criticizing Senator Joseph McCarthy because he publicly accused people of being communists without any evidence, using fear and intimidation that damaged free speech and democratic values. No newspaper agreed to publish their work. The FBI infiltrated their group and eventually they disbanded. In 1956, Miller was summoned before the HUAC and asked to name the people who had attended the meetings. He refused to do so. As a result, he was fined, he was sentenced to prison for contempt of Congress, and he was denied a passport, which prevented him from attending the Belgian opening of the Crucible. In 1958, the Court of Appeals overturned his conviction, ruling that the chairman of the HUAC had misled the court. Miller's final major play of the 1950s, A View from the Bridge, opened on Broadway in 1955 as part of a double bill with A Memory of Two Mondays. In 1956, Miller revised A View from the Bridge into a full-length two-act play which was produced in London. In 1956, Miller divorced his first wife, Mary Slattery, and later that same month married Marilyn Monroe. He had first met Monroe in 1951, after which they had a brief affair and remained in contact. After his conviction was overturned in 1958, Miller began working on the screenplay for the film The Misfits, in which his wife Marilyn Monroe acted. He wrote the film for her during the late 1950s, following a series of personal difficulties, including the loss of a child during pregnancy. The couple divorced shortly before the film's release in 1961. In February 1962, Miller married for the third time to Austrian photographer Inge Morath. Their daughter Rebecca was born in September 1962, followed by their son Daniel in November 1966. In 1964, Miller's play After the Fall was produced. A strongly autobiographical work, it reflected his personal experiences, especially his marriage to Monroe. The play premiered at the American National Theatre and Academy, or the ANTA Theatre, in Washington Square Park and caused controversy for portraying a character based on Monroe named Maggie. In the same year, Miller wrote Incident at Vichy, which ran for 99 performances. The play is about a group of men who have been detained in Vichy, France in 1942 by German military officers and Vichy French police to determine which race they belong to. Miller remained politically active throughout his life. In 1965, he was elected president of International PEN, which at the time stood for Poets, Essayists, and Novelists, a worldwide organization that works to defend imprisoned writers and promote freedom of expression. In 1968, Miller wrote The Price, his most successful play since Death of a Salesman. The play was published during a period of the Vietnam War and political assassinations in the United States. It focuses on two brothers who meet after years of separation and unresolved conflict. In 1980, Miller returned to the subject of the Great Depression with The American Clock. In the 1990s, he wrote plays such as The Ride Down Mount Morgan and The Last Yankee, both produced in 1993. In 1994, he wrote Broken Glass, set in 1938 during the Nazi persecution of Jews, while also reflecting moral and political paralysis in modern Europe. In 2002, Miller became the first American writer to receive Spain's prestigious Prince of Asturias Award for Literature. Finishing the Picture is a play based on the time Miller and his then wife Marilyn Monroe spent shooting the film The Misfits, which we discussed earlier in this unit. After the death of Inge Morath in 2002, the 89-year-old Miller entered into a relationship with Agnes Barley, a 34-year-old artist, and he planned to marry her after living together for 2 years at his farm in Connecticut, a state in the northeast US. Arthur Miller died of a heart failure in his home in Roxbury, Connecticut on 10 February 2005 at the age of 89 years. At the time of his death, he was widely regarded as one of the greatest American playwrights. Throughout his life, Miller remained socially engaged and wrote with conscience, clarity, and compassion. His work reflects a deep sense of responsibility to humanity and to his audience. So that was all for this video. I hope you liked it. Please don't forget to subscribe and check out the playlist for more videos on Arthur Miller and American literature.